Hey everyone, you know of the almost 400,000 species of plants on our planet, every single one is adapted in its own particular way to thrive in its natural environment. This has led to the development of some unexpected and peculiar behaviors, abilities, and appearances that show off just how fascinating the natural world can be. From plants that will move away from you to ones that bleed and ones that have potentially lethal defensive mechanisms. It's time to take a closer look at the top 15 strangest types of plants. Number 15. Mimosa pudica. With a Latin name that means shy or bashful, the Mimosa pudica is an unusual plant in the way that it reacts to being touched. If you watch virtually any plant over a long period of time, you'll see that they move for various reasons, often to follow the sun. But the reaction of this plant is far faster. Simply touching a leaf gently will cause it to instantly curl up, and it'll stay like this for several minutes before unfurling again. The species is native to regions across the Caribbean and Central and Southern America, but because of its unique nature, it's been taken to other continents around the world and has thrived to such an extent that it's regarded as an invasive weed in a number of countries. The plants themselves can grow to a length of up to 5 feet, or about 1.5 meters tall, and prefer tropical environments in low-nutrient soil that isn't covered by shade. It's not just touch that they'll react to either, because they'll also react to rapid changes in temperature, light levels, strong winds, and the shaking of the ground around them. A muscle-like structure called the pulvinus is what allows the plant to react so quickly, and each one is able to send chemical signals to the others within the same plant to trigger their movement as well. This is a behavior that's believed to have evolved as a defense mechanism against predators, and they do this as a way to help the plant retain nutrients when environmental conditions aren't favorable. But the process of closing up uses large amounts of energy and prevents the plant from photosynthesizing while it's closed. Number 14. Porcupine tomato. Tomatoes are one of the most popular types of produce that's used in cuisines from around the world, but not every member of the plant's family is appetizing to eat. There's one variety which is endemic to Madagascar that's known locally as the porcupine tomato, and it definitely shouldn't be used to make your next salad. From the moment the sapling begins to emerge, the plant develops large orange thorns across its leaves and stems that are rigid and sharp, and these are designed to prevent animals from stealing the fruit or trying to eat any other parts. If that's not enough of a preventative measure, the fruits themselves are just as vicious as they are. Along with the leaves and stems, contain high concentrations of tropane alkaloids that, if eaten, will make you seriously ill. The plant will normally grow to a height of around 5 feet, or just over 1.5 meters, and they develop purple flowers, and it's their bold color along with the orange thorns that has made porcupine tomatoes a popular species of ornamental plant around the globe. Extra care is, of course, needed if you're planning on planting one of these in your garden, because not only do they pose a risk to humans, but also to any pets or wild animals that have never encountered them before and could possibly have a fatal response to the toxins that they contain. Number 13. Dead horse arum lily. As you walk through any place where there are plants and flowers, you'll occasionally notice a scent that's been released by one. Each species has its own specific smell that's evolved to attract certain animals that help them pollinate or spread their seeds. But while most are sweet and pleasant, there are some that are incredibly unpleasant. One of the worst smelling of all is the dead horse arum lily, which is a type of ornamental plant that's native to the islands in the Mediterranean, like Corsica and Sardinia. From a distance, it's a pretty plant, which is why most people like growing them as a decorative species, but it's almost guaranteed to make you retch a little bit as you get closer. That's because this lily relies on flies, such as the common green bottle fly, to pollinate. When they're ready, the plants actually are able to raise their temperature through a process called thermogenesis, and then release a scent that's a perfect corollary of rotting meat, so much so that the flies are unable to tell the difference. When the flies enter to lay their eggs, they become trapped inside the chamber of the plant by spines overnight to give them a chance to deposit any pollen they're already carrying. And then when the plant has produced pollen of its own, the spines shrivel up and the flies are able to leave, while at the same time picking up more pollen that can be transferred to the next plant that they visit. It's a very clever method of using insects that few other species rely on for pollination, and this is how the dead horse arum lily has managed to thrive across the island chain that they're native to. Number 12. Baseball plant. Originating from the Cape Province region of South Africa, the baseball plant is an unusual type of succulent that looks surprisingly similar to an actual baseball. They're often seen in botanical gardens around the world thanks to the relative ease of cultivation, and depending on their age, will grow to between 2 to 6 inches, or about 6 to 15 centimeters in diameter. It's when they're at their youngest that they're more spherical and will become slightly cylindrical as they grow because of the increased amount of water that's held inside reservoirs in preparation for long periods of drought. Virtually every plant has 8 prominent ridges, and if they're exposed to prolonged sunlight, the normally green color will develop red and purple patches. While you can easily see these plants in places that they've been cultivated, they're becoming increasingly rare in the wild. This is partly because so many have been collected for sale into private hands, and also because each plant grows relatively slowly and only produces 2 or 3 seeds, so aren't able to spread as quickly as other species. Also, there's a species of cactus that's found in Texas and Mexico called the Astrophytum asterius, or more commonly, the sea urchin cactus, that looks very much like the baseball plant. These similarities aren't due to a shared heritage, though, and are instead examples of evolutionary convergence, where 2 separate species have developed similar traits that help them survive in arid environments. Number 11. The semaphore plant. While virtually every species of plant is able to move, they usually do so very gradually in a way that's almost imperceivable to the human eye. There are some exceptions to this, though, and one of the more surprising is known as the semaphore plant. Classified as a tropical Asian shrub and a member of the pea family, this species is native to countries across Asia, such as Bangladesh, Cambodia, China, India, Indonesia, Malaysia, and Vietnam, as well as unusually various island chains throughout. This was one of Charles Darwin's favorite plants because of the way that it moves, and it's developed an ingenious way to ensure it collects as much sunlight as possible. Each of the large leaves has a hinge-like structure that's able to alter its position and turn it to an angle to receive the most intense sunlight. The process of moving the leaf, though, uses up a lot of energy, so the plant has developed a way to be as efficient as possible. At the base of each large leaf are 2 leaflets, and these continually follow an elliptical path, so to sample the levels of sunlight throughout the day. Once they detect levels that are worth adjusting to, they send a signal to the hinge, and the main leaf is moved. As well as following the sun, the movement is also believed to be a defense mechanism that mimics the motions of butterflies. By looking like one of the insects, it prevents others from trying to lay eggs on their leaves, and this ultimately protects them from being eaten by the caterpillars that would eventually emerge. Number 10. Water wheel plant. Native to regions across Europe, Asia, Africa, and Australia, the water wheel plant is the second most prevalent carnivorous species in the world and can be so effective at spreading that it's considered to be an invasive species. They float in water and surprisingly don't have a root system at all. Instead, they directly absorb the water from their surroundings and rely on their ability to capture small aquatic animals to provide them with nutrition. The central stem, which can be up to 16 inches or about 40 centimeters long, is covered in a specialized trap leaf that grows in circular clusters. Each trap is made up of 2 lobes that can fold against each other and are covered in a series of fine hairs to detect when a creature is within their grasp. When triggered, the leaves will snap shut in less than 0.2 of a second, which makes the water wheel plant one of the fastest plant movements in the whole of the animal kingdom. To prevent clasping around debris, the leaves are also surrounded by hairs that act as filters, so the plant can be sure that anything that's reached the inner part of the leaf can only have done so on purpose. Interestingly, the traps only work in very specific environments too, and must be in water that's warmer than 68 degrees Fahrenheit, or about 20 degrees Celsius. If it's any colder than this, the water wheel plant will instead produce non-carnivorous leaves that are heavier and cause them to sink to the bottom, where they'll endure the colder temperatures before rising back to the surface when it heats up again. Number 9. Brugmansia. Also known as angel's trumpets because of the large flowers that they produce, Brugmansia is the name given to 7 species of shrubs that are native to South America. Popular as an ornamental species, they're actually classified as being extinct in the wild, with the only known specimens being those that have been cultivated. It's thought that the reason for this is that the animal that was previously responsible for spreading the plant's seeds has itself become extinct, which means the only way that Brugmansia continues to exist is by human involvement. Growing to a height of about 36 inches or about a meter, the trumpet-shaped flowers themselves can grow up to 20 inches or 50 centimeters long. The 7 species range in color from yellow to pink to orange, and if it wasn't for their stunning flowers, there's no way people would want to grow them, because they're also extremely toxic. The entire plant is poisonous, but the seeds and leaves are particularly dangerous, all as a result of the natural production of several tropane alkaloids, such as scopolamine and hyoscyamine. It doesn't take too large a dose to begin experiencing side effects, which include confusion, dry mouth, tremors, headaches, and paralysis of some muscles. And with larger doses, you can expect to develop hallucinations, problems with eyesight, and potentially death. It's illegal to grow these plants in a number of places, including Florida, because of the risk they pose. And if you ever see one in real life, it's best to admire the flowers from a distance. Number 8. Rainbow Eucalyptus. One of the most stunning trees for their appearance is the rainbow eucalyptus, and in the right conditions, they grow surprisingly tall. Native to the Philippines, Indonesia, and Papua New Guinea, they've been exported around the world and are now grown in a range of different environments because there truly is no other tree that looks anything like them. Their trunks are covered in vibrant colors, and this happens because of the way that they grow. They can reach up to 250 feet or 76 meters tall, with a trunk diameter as much as 100 inches or 2.5 meters. They can reach this size in a relatively short period of time. This fast rate of growth results in the periodic shedding of strips of bark, and this is when the colors of the inner layers become revealed. Streaks of greens, reds, oranges, grays, and purples can emerge, almost as if it's been splattered with paint. One of the most amazing rainbow eucalyptus specimens in the world can be found on the Hawaiian island of Kauai. They were imported in the 1920s in an attempt to control soil erosion and to regrow the forests that had been cut down, and the environment proved to be perfect. Some roads are now lined with them, with individuals growing in excess of 200 feet, in what is both a surreal and incredible sight. Number 7. Cape Sundew. Cape sundews are a small plant species that's native to the area around the Cape Peninsula in South Africa and have become one of the most common species of sundews thanks to a large number of seeds that they produce and the ease at which they can germinate in virtually any condition. Insects attracted by the colors that glisten in the sunlight and the scent become trapped on the tentacles as soon as they make contact, and this gives the plant a chance to begin digesting them before they find a way to escape. The leaf begins to curl up around the victim, which attaches more sticky tentacles and also puts more of its digestive glands, which are scattered across the leaves, into contact with the insect. It takes less than an hour for the leaf to completely cover an insect, and the body will be broken down by enzymes within the following 6 hours. The nutrients are absorbed through the red tips of the tentacles, and once the process is complete, the leaf will unfurl and is ready to capture the next insect that lands on it. Number 6. Puya ramandai. The Puya ramandai, also known as the Queen of the Andes, is the largest of all the species of bromeliad and is native to the Andes mountain range across Bolivia and Peru, usually between 9 and 16,000 feet above sea level, particularly where the terrain is covered in rocky slopes and small shrubs. They're closely related to pineapples, and they stand out above all that surrounds them with a trunk that can grow upwards of 16 feet or about 5 meters. And the rosette that forms at the top consists of around 200 leaves, each of which are around 4 feet or 1.2 meters long. This entire combined structure of leaves and flowers can itself be 26 feet tall, meaning that the entire plant can reach in excess of 50 feet tall. Usually it takes 80 years before they're ready to bloom, but when they do, they can produce as many as 20,000 flowers within a 3-month period. They rely on birds to help them pollinate, but there's still a lot to learn about their relationship with animals. Due to their size, it's not uncommon to find birds that have become trapped inside the plants, and there's currently a debate within the scientific community as to whether this is evidence that these plants are protocarnivorous, that is a defense mechanism, or simply a cruel twist of fate that some birds suffer from. Due to the length of their reproductive cycle, this species is now regarded as highly endangered as a result of human activity, climate change, and fires, and efforts are now underway to try to protect them for generations to come. Number 5. Corkscrew plant. There are around 30 different species of corkscrew plant that can be found in damp ground across Africa and Central and South America. Unlike most species of plants, they don't actually grow any roots and instead develop a complex network of underground traps that are more specifically designed to capture and digest microorganisms, in particular protozoans. Looking no different to other herb-like plants from above ground, their traps are made up of hollow, round stalks that burrow into the ground in a spiral shape. Microorganisms spend their lives feeding on the roots of various plant species, but if they're unfortunate enough to find a corkscrew plant, it'll be the last thing they ever do. The traps have a series of openings along them, and once something enters one, there's no going back. The opening closes behind them, and they become trapped within a network of hair-like structures that push the organism towards the main part of the plant. During this journey, it's digested by enzymes within the plant, and by the time it reaches the end, all that's left is a nutritious liquid that the plant can absorb. All this happens underground and to microorganisms. It was only in 1998 that corkscrew plants were proven to be carnivorous, even though Charles Darwin himself suggested this might be the case more than a century earlier. Number 4. Manchineel tree. At first, you may think this species of tree produces a small variety of apple, but the fruits of the manchineel tree are far from being a healthy snack and can instead lead to an early and extremely painful death. Native to regions across both North and South America, they're one of the most toxic trees on Earth, and the part you really need to be careful of is the sap. That's because it contains high concentrations of phorbol and a large number of other toxins, and it'll cause extreme blistering if it makes contact with your skin. The most common types of injuries related to these trees take place when it's raining outside, where people who take shelter under the tree risk raindrops picking up a tiny amount of the sap and then landing on their skin, which is more than enough to see the effects. Burning the trees can be just as dangerous too, with reports suggesting that the smoke that's released can damage eyes, and eating the fruits is a one-way trip to the emergency room, because while the taste may be sweet at first, your mouth will soon start burning, your throat will swell up, and you may suffer from a bacterial superinfection that can lead to death. And it's not just humans who are affected in this way. Manchineel trees are dangerous for most animals, except for those that have specifically evolved to counter those dangers, such as the black-spined iguana. In most populated areas where the trees grow, you'll see signs telling you to stay away, or maybe a giant red X or stripes painted on the trunk to warn of the dangers. Number 3. Titan arum. Native to the Indonesian island of Sumatra, the Titan arum produces the largest flowering structure in the world. Incredibly, the central growth, which is made up of clusters of flowers, can be more than 10 feet or 3 meters tall. But seeing one of these can be quite rare. It takes up to 10 years before the plant will flower for the first time, and after then, it can be between 3 and 10 years before it will bloom again. There's a very short time to see it in its full glory, because it begins to wilt within 12 hours of opening and can be completely gone within just 2 days. These plants have learned to take advantage of this time to attract insects to collect and transport the pollen as efficiently as possible, and they emit a disgusting potent smell. They're often called corpse flowers because of the putrid odor, but this draws in the insects that either eat or lay their eggs in rotting meat. To further encourage the spread of this smell, the plants are thermogenic, which means they produce a large amount of heat to warm up their perfume and ensure it disperses into the air and through the jungle, which means you don't have to be very close to a Titan arum before you're fully aware that there's one growing nearby. Number 2. Tahina spectabilis. Around the world, there are at least 2,600 different known species of palm tree, each of which has adapted to grow in different environments and to track animals that live in their particular ecosystems. Of all the palms, though, one of the most unusual is the Tahina spectabilis, which is a variety that's native to just one place, the Analalava district of northwestern Madagascar. Amazingly, these palms are only found across a 12-acre area, but they are one of the largest species, able to grow to around 59 feet tall, and with leaves that are spread as wide as 16 feet. Normally, you'd expect a palm tree to produce seeds every year that are hardy and capable of traveling huge distances before establishing themselves, and this is part of the reason why the trees are found across the world. The Tahina spectabilis doesn't do this, though, and it's why there are so few of them in the wild, with estimates suggesting there's only about 100 of them. They'll go their entire lives without producing any seeds, and it's only when they reach an age of between 30 and 50 years, when they're fully grown, that they become ready to flower. This process is one of the most spectacular and destructive in the natural world, though, because it sees the Tahina spectabilis produce an unbelievably large inflorescence that measures up to 19 feet or 8 meters high and across, and produces hundreds, if not thousands, of flowers. These will allow the trees to produce their seeds, but this comes at a huge cost. The tree uses up so much energy in producing the flowers and the seeds that it'll die within a matter of months. It's a rare sight to see, and one that takes so long that hardly any institutions in the world are trying to cultivate them. And there's now a real concern that the species could be completely extinct in just a few decades. Number 1. The dragon's blood tree. The Socotra Archipelago, which is an island chain in the Arabian Sea, is one of the most unusual places on Earth. It was separated from the continent millions of years ago, and life there has evolved independently, making it more biodiverse than even the Galapagos Islands. Among all the strange animals and plant life is the tree that's synonymous with the islands, officially called the Dracaena cinnamari, more commonly known as the dragon blood tree. Upon first impressions, it's a strange-looking tree with an upturned and densely packed branch and leaf network that almost looks umbrella-like. The tree's actually distantly related to palm trees, which grow in a similar way, where they don't expend energy in forming branches lower down and instead focus on capturing as much sunlight as possible. But what really sets the dragon blood tree apart from the rest, though, is its sap. It's a dark crimson red in color, and since the ancient world it's been highly prized and referred to as dragon's blood. It's collected and used for a wide number of purposes, from medicines and used as dye in cosmetics to being an ingredient in ritual magic and alchemy. On Socotra Island itself, the sap is used as a general cure-all treatment for illnesses, particular for healing wounds and clear up the digestive system. And as a result, a number of pharmaceutical companies are conducting tests to see if any of the chemicals in the sap can be replicated and used on a wider scale. The demand for the sap has, of course, led to a number of trees being cut down, and there's now concern that if they aren't managed carefully, this could become an endangered species in the years to come. I'll see you next time.
Watch our nature playlist for more top 15 videos about beautiful nature. Sit back, relax, and binge watch all of our best nature videos.